Sorry about that, the video got cut off, my battery had died. So this is the second part of me getting out of federal prison after doing 5 years. And I had gotten out on April 9th, 2013. April 9th, coincidentally, is my son Nico's birthday. So April 9th is a good day for me. And where we had left off last time, my parents had come and picked me up in Wisconsin. I was flying back to Los Angeles because I had to go to the halfway house for 6 months. And the halfway house is located in Hollywood, California. So I'd gotten into it with the lady on the airplane. And she was rude to me, and I had a very aggressive, aggro response to her. And I found that I picked up a lot of good character traits while I was in prison. I matured pretty substantially compared to the person I was before I'd gone in. I got more honest, less manipulative. I lied less. You know, I learned how to communicate. I think that was from being in debts and learning that it was better to just be straightforward with somebody and tell them, you know, just communicate with them instead of giving them the runaround or giving them some bullshit, you know, story. And before, I would just tell people what they wanted to hear. But in prison, you can only do that for so long. It starts to catch up with you. So I became much more honest. I wrote a book, you know, I sat down and I accomplished something. And I also learned, you know, short-term accomplishments, like working out every day, being on like a strict diet and workout routine. I learned discipline, you know, and I learned patience from all the time that I spent in the hole. But I definitely got more aggressive. And, you know, my family, my parents, my friends, they all say that that first prison term changed me forever. That, you know, I have an anger problem now. I go from 0 to 100 like that, and it's really hard for me to shut it off. I mean, I see red. And I didn't have that before I went to prison, you know. I had done some violent stuff, more reactionary, like when I stabbed the skinhead when I was 19 years old. You know, that was like pretty much self-defense, you know. The guy was trying to stab me, so I stabbed him. But when I got out of prison in 2013, I got in a number of fights that first year, and we'll get into all that. But, you know, it was just like, it was almost like I'd been rewired. And I picked up some you know, some more innocent little weird idiosyncrasies while I was in prison too. One of them that comes to mind is that when I brushed my teeth, I spit into the toilet. You know, I'd done that for so many years. That's like prison etiquette, you know, or jail etiquette, you know, especially if there's like a community bathroom. But even if you are in a two-man cell, it's just courtesy to spit in the toilet. And I do that to this day. My fiancé is always like, what the fuck are you doing? And she's like, can't you like unprogram yourself for doing weird stuff like that? And, you know, the answer is, I don't know. It's just kind of ingrained in me. When the mood strikes, I roll up my mattress and I have sex with it. No, I'm just kidding. I don't still do that. But you know, stuff had stuck with me, and I definitely was never the same after doing that first term. You know, it changed me, and in a lot of ways, I miss the person I was before I went to prison. But I also like who I am today. You know, I like the things that I've accomplished, and I don't think I could have done that if I hadn't gone away for that much time. So when we landed in LA, it was late. It was probably like, I want to say midnight by the time that I got to the halfway house. And like I said, it was in Hollywood. I mean, it was like right off Western in the heart of Hollywood. And it's right in a residential area. And we pulled up, and there's a gate, and you have to buzz, you have to get buzzed in. And when I got there, there was, you know, some tech, like you'd have it like a rehab, or, you know, somebody wearing scrubs, and they did an intake with me, just like you'd go to any program. And basically I had to sign a bunch of paperwork. We went over all the rules. I was going to be breathalyzed and drug tested randomly and frequently. I had to get a job, or I had to go at least look for a job. And they told me that I was going to be at the halfway house, I think for a minimum for a month. I was committed to the halfway house for 6 months, but I think I actually had to physically be there for a month. And then if I had a job and if I had a house with a landline, then I could go on house arrest. And we went over all that, and then they told me that I'd be, they told me which room that I'd be living in, and that I had roommates. So they bring me up there, and they give me my bedroll and, clean sheets, and it was just kind of like, going to a cell in prison. I go in this room, and there's about 6 bunk beds. And the way that the door opened, like the light from the hallway, shined in, and I could see that the bunk that I was going to be sleeping in, the person below me, was this guy named Scrappy. And he was one of the guys that was in 7 South when I had gone on suicide watch, and I had owed him money. Now, he got paid off. I paid every single one of these people off. But me going on suicide watch, remember Jenny had just died and I went on suicide watch and I owed a bunch of people money, and I was able to pay at least the Southsiders, and then Mike and I got in the fight, so that got squashed. But I did pay this particular guy off, but he was a mean guy. His name was Scrappy, and he's the guy that the caveman had beat up. And so he's like, as soon as the door opens and the light shines on his face, he kind of squints at me, and I don't think he recognizes me, and I just see him, and like my heart skips a beat. I'm like, oh my God. I had gone to Wisconsin for a few years, and I had forgotten about what it was like to be doing time in California at MDCLA or at Victorville, where, it was like I was walking on eggshells all the time, and I was constantly scared, and I felt that instantly again. I'm like, God, I just got out, and now I have to deal with this guy. And the whole room was full of bunk beds with Southsiders. So I was like, instantly I'm like, God, is he going to recognize me? Is he going to say that I pulled some PC move while I was at MDCLA, and are these guys going to fucking smash me out? Because you'd hear stories about crazy stuff going on at halfway houses all the time. And like worse stuff than what goes on in prison. Because in the halfway house, like they have real weapons, and they can sneak real weapons in there. Even though you have to walk through a metal detector every time you go in and out, and they have the metal detector wand. I've heard horror stories about people getting their throats slit in halfway houses. Some of them can be very violent. I mean, think about it. We're in Hollywood, California. We got all the LA gangbangers. After such a long, exhaustive day, it was like the last fucking person I wanted to see. So I go to sleep, I make my bed, I go to sleep, and I wake up in the morning. I don't even think I got sleep. I think I was so overly stimulated from getting out that I kind of got like, that thing where I'm like, it's like catnap, where I'm just barely getting just a little bit of real sleep. But when the morning had come, I saw him, and he was making his bed, and he just looked at me, didn't say anything. I was like, hey, what's up? He's like, hey, what's up, fool? I was like, hey, do you remember me? And he's like, yeah, I remember you real well, fool. It's fucking not cool what you did at MDCLA, dog. A fucking PC move, fool. And I'm like, yeah, man, I mean, it was my first term, and I was green. I didn't know what I was doing, man. My Ruka just died, fool. What if I started talking like that? I probably would have wanted to fight right then and there. I said, hey, my girl just died, and I was going through like a really bad emotional time. It's like the last thing you want to tell a person like this. Well, Scrappy, I just wasn't emotionally fit at the time to deal with it. That's not what he wanted to hear, and I explained my case to him, and I'm like, are we cool? He's like, yeah, fool, whatever. We're out here now. I got a fucking hyena now, dog. A bomb-ass hyena. I'm like, oh yeah, for real? I'm all trying to like fake that I care about his girlfriend. He's like, bomb-ass hyena, fool. I'm like, all right, cool. He's like, it's cool though, dog, for real. And, he gave me the little dap, and I'm like, okay, whatever. So I get up. I didn't really know what I needed to do. I heard that I was supposed to go look for a job the next day. But I already had a job lined up. I was going to be working for my dad's company. He was going to have me doing data entry. My dad owned a national healthcare consulting firm. And basically he had a bunch of stuff backlogged that needed to be added into the computer systems. Just really tedious work. He was going to give me like $13 an hour. Whatever it was, I was grateful that I was getting out of prison with a job, so I didn't even care what I was doing. And as soon as I was out of the, intake phase, which I think, like I said, was a month, I was going to move up to Santa Barbara and be on house arrest and work for my dad. But in the meantime, regardless of the fact that I had a job lined up, they were making me go look for jobs in the day. And so I got up and, one of my roommates, the only white guy in there, I forget what his name was, but he came up to me and he's like, "Hey man, let me show you what's up." I was like, "All right, cool." And so he's like, "You got to check the board right here, and if you have a chore, it's going to be on here. We all have chores." So I looked for my name. My name wasn't added on the list yet because I had just gotten there. I was like, my name's not on the list. He's like, "Yeah, they're going to add you probably like by the time you come back today." I was like, "All right, cool." And so we went into the kitchen. They had a kitchen where they fed us every morning, and it was like cereal and milk, and I ate some of that. And then the guy had told me, he's like, "Okay, now you just go." I'm like, "What do you mean I just go?" He's like, "You go look for a job all day." It was like 7 in the morning, right? He's like, "Yeah, everybody has to be out of here by 7. And I'm like, "What?" I'd just gotten out of prison, right? I mean, I was excited. I wanted to get out, but it was just kind of weird that I was in prison the night before, and now I was just going to be like literally in the middle of Hollywood. And so I left just by myself, and I just kind of walked around. And if you've ever been to Hollywood, it's right by Hollywood Boulevard. I mean, it's pretty weird. I mean, you see like people dressed up like superheroes. You see just a lot of really strange people. It's Holly weird, And it was a trip to go from being in prison to seeing shit like this. Like I was like walking by and I was like seeing guys like sucking on like whipped cream off hot dogs, wearing these little like cut off jean shorts, and there's like drum and bass music, and like it's at like 7:30 in the fucking morning. I'm like, wow, this is not like prison. And eventually I like couldn't take the madness of Hollywood. I mean, it was cool being around all the people, but it was also kind of overwhelming, and I was getting social anxiety. Anybody that's done a lot of prison time will tell you that. I think that the reason that you get social anxiety in crowds is because in prison you come to realize that, people can stab you in the back, big things, a riot can pop off at any moment. And really, anytime you see a big crowd form in prison, it's usually indicative of something bad that's going to go down. It's usually, something foreboding. And in the free world, think about it, you're around big crowds all the time. So you get social anxiety when you're around crowds like that. So I didn't like being on my landlord's cat right here. I did not like being out there in Hollywood Boulevard like that. Not my first day out. I needed to like decompress a little bit more. And so I left Hollywood Boulevard and I kind of just walked up into the hills, There's a bunch of hills like Beechwood that are right above Hollywood like that. And I just walked up into the hills and I found a park. And that was like way more my speed. I sat at this park and I remember just watching like little kids play in the park with like their parents, and it was really nice, It was like, that's what I was like really craving that. When you think of freedom, you think of just like tranquility, and you think of like just, things being mellow like this. Not being on Hollywood Boulevard watching the dudes suck whipped cream off hot dogs. And I really did see that. That's why I keep going back to that. It's not just something I'm making up. So I spent the day kind of, hanging out at this park. I was there for hours, and I came back. You had to go back to the halfway house at 4:30. And so I get back there, and pretty much starts my routine of that. That's what I do every day. But, you know, as I'm there for a few more days, I start actually, you know, going out and hanging out in Hollywood Boulevard more. And I talked to my friend Paul Harper, my friend that had just passed away. And that was one of the first people that I had called. And he told me that he had, because they had these pay phones outside the halfway house. You were allowed to have cell phones at this halfway house, but you had to check them into this like locker every time that you came into the halfway house. And I didn't even have one yet. I didn't have a phone, but they also had pay phones that you could use. And my mom had got me a bunch of rolls of quarters to use when I was doing my laundry. So I could use those quarters to make phone calls too. And I had called Paul Harper, and he told me that Gigi was freaking out, that she'd gotten a text from me and that she was all sprung and wanted to see me. And he's like, dude, you should hit her up. Like, you can definitely fuck Gigi. She's all about you. And she's super excited that you just got out. She just broke up with her boyfriend like a few weeks ago, so it's perfect timing. And he also gave me a prepaid calling card that he said he had when he was like homeless or something. I don't know. Paul always had weird shit like that. And he said he had like 5,000 minutes on it and that he would just give it to me. So he had me write down this prepaid phone card. And I wrote it down, and now I was able to make 5,000 minutes of free payphone calls, which was cool. And I ended up calling Gigi, and we started talking. And she told me that basically the reason that she had cut me off when I went to the hole for the dirty is because she was in the program. You know, she was in NA, and her sponsor had told her, you know, to get away from me. That if I'm still getting in trouble in prison, then what's the point of trying to form some sort of relationship with me, because I'm always going to be in and out. If I can't behave in there's no way I'm going to behave out in the free world, which was true. I didn't blame her for that. So we basically made up, and we went right back to where we left off. We're saying I love you, and I ended up buying like a little Boost Mobile cell phone off somebody so that I could talk to her on the cell phone. And every day I would go and leave the halfway house. I wasn't really looking for a job because, like I said, I already had one lined up with my dad. And what I would do is I would spend a lot of time talking to her on my cell phone. I took the bus down to Venice Beach, and I used to play basketball with my friend down there. Sometimes I'd go skate. My mom brought me my skateboard, so I'd go to the skate park there. And I was just having like a lot of fun being free. Gigi was living up in San Francisco at the time, so she couldn't see me. You know, that's like a 6 or 7 hour drive. So she, like, you know, we were planning on her coming to Santa Barbara as soon as I was released from the halfway house to house arrest. And every time you go in and out, like I said, you go through a metal detector, and then they get the wand and they wand you down. They're usually looking for weapons, but also everybody's sneaking cell phones in, so they're looking for that as well. Because nobody wants to put it in the locker. Everybody wants to jerk off to porn or talk to their girlfriends or whatever. So what we would do is we would go get a smoothie that would come in a styrofoam cup, and we would get a plastic bag, like a Ziploc bag, put the cell phone in it, we'd empty the smoothie into another cup, and then we put this bag with the cell phone, Ziploc bag, inside the styrofoam cup and pour the smoothie back over it. And we would just come in after looking for jobs supposedly all day, and we would just be like drinking our smoothie while they're wanding us down, and they would never hit the smoothie. So we were able to get our cell phone in that way. And I would literally like sit in the closet and just talk to Gigi all night long. And we were like getting serious again. It was a bullshit relationship to begin with. She was like 20 years old now. I was 27. And I was just about... So now I'd been at the halfway house for, I want to say 3 weeks. And I had to hit the 4-week mark to be able to go on house arrest. And they had laundry on site. You had to pay for it. And this halfway house was co-ed. And there were a bunch of... They had weights there too, so I was still lifting weights. My mom had gotten me like creatine and glutamine, BCAAs. I had all the supplements that I'd wanted while I was in prison. And I had my mom get them for me, and you know, she gave me that as a gift because she knew that if I got into fitness when I got out, there was a way better chance that I would stay out of trouble. And she was absolutely right. I stayed sober for 3 years. But one night I was so there's these girls there, right? And most of the it's crazy because guys go to prison and they get in really good shape. Girls go to prison, they get shot out. It's weird. Like they don't do anything. They don't get fit in there. That's kind of a mean generalizing statement, but it's true. Come here, cat. But anyway, one day, so I wasn't fucking with any of the girls, right? I mean, you know, plus I was like committed to Gigi. I really like had it in my mind that we were going to be in this relationship now. And so I was kind of like I wasn't giving the girls that were at this halfway house any attention. But one day, I go to do my laundry, and Scrappy's in there with his girlfriend. Of course, she's like 350 pounds. Bomb-ass Heina. Definitely not a bomb-ass Heina. But, you know, he had told me, like, it was weird. Like, we didn't get along, but, like, I remember, like, maybe 3 or 4 nights before this, he's like, hey, fool. He had, like, a little tear coming out of it, down from his eyes. Like, hey, fool. My old lady's pregnant, dog. I'm gonna be a poppy, dog. I'm like, that's great, man. He's like, yeah, I fucking met her here, fool. She's my soulmate, dog. I fucking love her, fool. She's fucking bomb. I'm like, all right, man. And so I'm doing laundry, and they're both in there, and they're getting in an argument. And, you know, they start arguing, and, like, I don't know. It's like, you know, some typical, like, you were looking at that other fool. You were looking at that other vato. Don't tell me you weren't. Don't tell me you weren't, goofy. And he's like talking to her in English, and then when they really start getting mad, they start talking in Spanish. So I don't know what they're talking about anymore. And he just backhands her. Bam! He backhands a pregnant girl. And just out of reaction, I cracked him in the face. You know, I wasn't going to let him just beat up a pregnant girl like that. And it was weird. It was like, you know, like as I was talking about, I picked up some like weird idiosyncrasies where like I just go like that. Like I didn't think about, this cat keeps jumping up on here. I didn't think about what the consequence could be. I was like a week from getting on house arrest. If I got caught fighting, I was going right back to jail. And I just hit him. And he hit me back. Like this guy, he could fight. His name was Scrappy, for fuck's sake. You know, I mean, he could fight. So we end up getting into it, and she's like, no, Papi, no! And I'm like, you know, we're like wrestling. What saved me in the fight, because he started beating me up a little bit. I mean, I sucker punched him first. I got him a good one on the chin. But what saved me is that it was a really small space, because the washer and dryers were right there. So the fight ended up getting on the ground, and we were rolling on the ground, and neither of us had enough leverage to really swing on each other. It was the kind of thing where this cat just keeps jumping up on here. And I have a fucking bong, and I do not want the cat to break the bong. Stop it, cat. This is my landlord's cat. It's not even mine. So eventually we're kind of rolling around on the floor, and we can't. Oh my god. Oh my god. This cat is driving me nuts. I'm sorry about that. Eventually the fight just kind of stops by itself. Like, it doesn't get broken up. We just stop fighting. And, you know, like, I think what happened is she kind of, like, grabbed him after we had stopped. And I just, like, stepped out of there. But the problem was that I was all bloody. You know, he had hit me in the nose, and he'd like nicked me, I think, with a watch on the side of my head. And when you get hit in the head, you know, the head like just bleeds profusely, even if it's not like even if it's just like a little superficial wound like that. But I was bleeding really bad, and somebody gave me a towel. And you got to remember, all of my roommates are fucking Southsiders except for one white guy. So now I'm like, god damn, like, okay, that's one little fight, but that's just not how it works with these dudes. Like, Now I'm gonna have to answer to all of his homeboys. And I had like one white guy, and he was like the dorkiest white guy ever, you know. But he gave me a towel, that my roommate, and I'm walking back up to my room. But to get up to my room, there's like a staff office, right? And so I was hoping that I could get up to the room without them seeing me. But of course they saw me, and I'm just covered in blood. And they're like, "What happened?" And it was right around 4:30. So I had just come in from looking for, work, supposedly. And what I told them is that I just got into it with somebody on the street. That somebody tried to steal my wallet and my cell phone. And that I got in a fight with them because they were trying to mug me. And they're like, "It didn't happen here." And I was like, "No." So dude, this cat is driving me fucking nuts, dude. So they let me clean up, and then they told everyone that we had to do a knuckle check. And we will get into what happened with the knuckle check, if I made it to house arrest, what happened with Scrappy's homeboys, in part 3 of me getting out of federal prison. Thank you guys so much for watching. Sorry about the cat. I'll definitely make sure he is not around next time. And let's try to start posting stuff more frequently. It's getting me out of my depression. Thank you guys. Palabra.